So Killers of the Flower Moon is the brand new film by legendary director Martin Scorsese, and it follows the real-life events of the murders of the Osage tribe. And is it good? Oh yeah, it's pretty good, so let's talk about it. So as I said, this movie was directed by Martin Scorsese, who's one of my favorite directors, and it's still pretty amazing that even in his 80s, he's once again proven to be a master of his craft. He did an excellent job directing this movie, and the whole film comes together really well under Martin Scorsese's direction, and I'm going to explain why. Just like so many of Scorsese's movies, he makes the runtime worth it. This was a 3.5 hour long movie, and just like with The Irishman, he was able to make this 3.5 hour long movie feel way shorter than it actually is. It felt more like it was 2.5 hours. I walked out of the theater thinking to myself, that was a really fast 3.5 hours. I actually find that kind of impressive because when I watched The Irishman, it's the same length, and I felt it was more so around like 2 hours and 45 minutes in regards to how it felt. Yet this movie's the same length, and yet it felt even shorter, which I think is kind of amazing. Pacing seems to be one of the most quintessential tools under Martin Scorsese's tool belt, and it's always worked for him. He's always somehow managed to make movies that are about 3 hours long, a little bit shorter or a little bit longer, perhaps, feel way shorter than they actually are, and that's just... He's done it once again. I was never bored throughout the runtime of this movie. I found it endlessly fascinating, and a huge reason why I was so captivated throughout the whole runtime of the movie is because of the performances and the writing for the characters. Robert De Niro is 80 years old, and he's still commanding screens at this age. I thought that he was amazing in this movie. Big shocker, he's Robert De Niro, but again, just like Scorsese, he's in his 80s and he's still a master of his craft. I thought that he was excellent in The Irishman a few years ago, and his quality in acting just has not gone down. Robert De Niro is still masterful as an actor, and he honestly might give the best performance in the movie, and that's saying something because this film is stacked with a bunch of great actors, but I thought that De Niro was marvelous in this movie, and he is definitely Oscar-worthy. Everything that I was hearing about Lily Gladstone as Molly Burkhart was true. She was sensational in this movie. Again, Oscar-worthy. If she doesn't get nominated by the Academy for Best Supporting Actress, I'm pretty much just going to check out from the Academy, because this performance was just marvelous. She really, really deserves all the praise she's getting. And this honestly might be the best performance I've ever seen from Leonardo DiCaprio. I've always had respect for him as an actor, but I think this might genuinely be his best performance. He completely disappeared into this role. I never at one point ever saw Leonardo DiCaprio. He really disappeared into this role, and that's saying something. He's always been super, super good as an actor, and I've always respected him a lot, but this might be his best performance. There was never a moment where I thought to myself, this is Leonardo DiCaprio. He transformed into his character and stayed that way throughout the whole movie, and again, Oscar-worthy performance. I think that these three lead actors should all get nominated for Oscars because they were all excellent in this movie. And seeing a film of this type with this cast honestly feels like a privilege in 2023. I think it's pretty amazing that, again, Scorsese and De Niro being in their 80s are still doing collaborations like this at this time. They're still masters of their craft, so it's amazing to see something like this in this year. But it was also so amazing to see De Niro and DiCaprio, who are Scorsese's most frequent actor collaborators, finally come together in the same movie, and it lived up to the hype, and everybody else is fantastic in the movie as well. And to see a movie like this on the big screen was a huge privilege. This is another huge point I want to make in this review. Please go see this movie on the big screen if you can, because it is an event. It's kind of like a Barbenheimer event-level movie. It's just one that you don't want to miss on the big screen. Trust me on this. The story also flows very well. It has a very well-written screenplay and some very harsh dialogue in some scenes. That's one of the other things I want to point about this movie is that very, very intriguing, engaging screenplay. This is one of those movies where when I see the actors, I was like, I cannot wait to hear the words that come out of these people's mouths, because that's how great the screenplay was. Now, there was some dialogue in this movie that was pretty harsh. It's very reminiscent of a different time in America. And that's another thing that I want to point out about the movie real quick is that there's a lot of scenes in this movie that, I'm reading my notes right now, a lot of scenes in this movie that in retrospect are kind of terrifying to think about when you think about the big picture of this story and what it represents. And there's definitely some intensity in certain scenes, some stuff that even I was shocked by it. And I went and I saw this with both of my parents, and my mom and I were just like, oh, during so many different scenes. Like, we couldn't believe how shocking some of the scenes were. And that's kind of the thing about this movie, is that this movie has an extremely important story, and I hope that many of you will go research it. But it may be triggering to some people as it does deal with very heavy subject matter because it is about the murders of the Osage tribe. However, if you decided this movie might be a little bit too intense for you, I understand that. I still recommend going and researching the story that's represented in this film as it's very important stuff to learn. The film was also beautifully shot. It was shot by Rodrigo Prieto. If I said his name incorrectly, I apologize. Who was actually the same cinematographer for Greta Gerwig's Barbie, both of which are amazing looking movies. And actually, I went through his IMDb earlier, and I wasn't even aware of how many big movies he's shot. And I think more mainstream directors will want to work with him after seeing how he shot two of this year's best movies. I mean, Barbie looked amazing, and this movie looked just as amazing. I mean, it's a totally different kind of look, but the cinematography was beautiful. I mean, that's always something that you expect from a Martin Scorsese movie, and this guy's actually shot some of Scorsese's previous movies, but man, this one just had a certain, beauty, but also certain kind of, sadness to the way it was shot, because the actual, set pieces and the costumes were immaculate, and I'll talk about that in a second, but it also felt it was also kind of shot in, a scale to where it's this is a very dark time in history. It's kind of amazing how you were able to get that emotion just based off how the movie looks. And that's a huge compliment I have to give to the cinematographer. As I said, the set pieces and the costumes were incredible. I really felt like I was in a different time period. It reminded me a lot of what Scorsese did with Gangs of New York. And he's done a lot of different movies that take place in different periods, like Aviator or Last Temptation of Christ, or several movies. But man, it was just brilliant the way that I was transported to this other time in human history. Scorsese really has another knack for that too, and that knack has not gone out. I really felt like I was in another time period with the way the costumes were and the set pieces and just everything. They really did an excellent job taking you to another time period. My only real complaint about the story is the fact that I kind of wanted to see the story through the eyes of Molly a little bit more, because it is about the murder of Molly's family. And we do see some stuff from her point of view, but I kind of felt like we saw most of it through Leonardo DiCaprio's character's point of view. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I did really want to see it through Molly's eyes a little bit more. But that's really kind of my only big complaint about the movie. I thought the movie was excellent. It was an exceptional movie. I highly recommend checking it out if you think you can handle it. If you don't think you can handle it, maybe wait till this one comes out on streaming, or maybe just research it. Or just think thoroughly and hardly before you decide to go see it, and really go and research the content warnings before you go see it if you think it might be a little bit too much for you. But if you think you can handle it, go see it. If you're a fan of Martin Scorsese like I am, or a fan of Robert De Niro or Gladstone or DiCaprio, definitely go see it, because it's an excellent movie, very well directed, very well shot, very well acted, very well written. Overall, this was a marvelous movie, and I highly recommend checking it out if you have not. This is one that should definitely be seen in theaters, as it was made by people who really care a lot about the story. This is a movie that if you really, really care about this story and you really care about the people involved in the story, you really want to go check it out. So definitely go see this in theaters while you can. I think that's going to be it for the review today, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the review. If you want to support the channel, make sure that you hit the like button. It really helps out. And feel free to subscribe and hit the notification bell to get notified about my latest videos. I apologize for the lack of content in the last few weeks. I'll kind of explain that in another video, but I'm glad to be back with this review. I hope you guys go check out the movie. If you liked Killers of the Flower Moon, let me know what you thought down in the comments below. Also, make sure you go click the link in the description. Go follow me on Twitch, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter, as I will be posting more content over there. Thank you guys so much as always for watching, and yeah, that's been it. Peace.